naturally, I would love to kind of kick off with just YouTube channel setup strategy. I think where a lot of people start is they have webinars, they have the 1 or 2 interviews that they've attempted, and they post these hour-long kind of episodes on YouTube channel, and they pretty much stop there.
Yeah.
I guess what I want to start with you is, how do you recommend businesses, set up? And we'll start there. There's a lot of different ways we can go, but I kind of want to just tee it off to you, and why don't you run with that?
Yeah. So first of all, I want to say I agree. I think YouTube is one of the most powerful business opportunities that most people are completely sleeping on. It's kind of like, I have to stop myself because I try to talk everyone into making a YouTube channel. Once I meet them, I'm like, oh, you could do a channel out of this. And so I get a little bit obsessive. Like at the retreat where we hung out and met each other, like I was trying to talk like 5 people into making a channel. It's just like, okay, not everyone wants to be a YouTuber. I did.
I was one of, hey,
you were the one who listened,
though. You made an impact. So I was texting you after. I was like, bro, wait, what did you say here? Right?
Yeah. But it's funny because I see the potential behind it. I mean, it's changed my own life quite a bit. I have so many friends who it's like created these really awesome businesses out of nowhere that just, they started talking about something they're interested in. And, YouTube, it's amazing at finding other people who are interested in the same stuff that you're into. Like there's, 2 billion users roughly. So, chances are, so if you're into something, it's going to find some other people who are into it too. As far as setup, so you were definitely correct that I think a lot of people don't approach it the right way. I think one of the key mistakes that a lot of people make is that they view it as like a place to just throw content onto, and then they'll try to like promote it to their friends to get them to like, go watch their videos and stuff. And it's actually the worst thing to do, because what happens is most of the time when you have like a friend who is just watching your video to be your friend, they're not probably your core target audience that you're trying to reach. And what YouTube is really, really good at is figuring out the best audience for any piece of content. It's fantastic at that. And if you know what you're doing and you trust the system and you make really good videos, it will find people to watch your stuff. I have a second channel that I made that it covers a different game than my main channel covers. And I worked really hard on the video. I applied everything I learned over the last few years of, how to make a really good video. And when I put that out, it started kind of slow, but then so you could see it starting to get a little bit of momentum. And within, I think 3 weeks, it really got picked up by the algorithm and it went crazy. I'll send you some graphs you can use later if you want. It was wild. It started really going crazy. And now to this day, that video has like 2 million views. It was the very first video I uploaded on that channel. So like 0 audience beforehand, but YouTube knew how to find people who would be interested in that kind of video. And I've seen it not only in my own stuff, I've seen so many friends make a great video as their first thing and get well over 1 million views on their very first video. Now, what each person that I mentioned didn't do is they didn't upload it and then immediately try to get my uncle to go watch it or my wife or whoever. It's like that, because that's not probably the right audience. And so what you do when you promote it that way is that you confuse YouTube, because then these people who aren't really like the right audience they're not watching the whole thing. They probably, like, if you were to upload another video, it's like not like the kind of content that they would normally watch anyway. So it's just, it's really not the way to go about it. The best thing to do is to become a student of YouTube, where you really study what makes a video good. And that really just, it requires watching a lot of YouTube and on trying to understand, like, how do people do the first 30 seconds of a video? Like how are the videos that are getting a lot of views? What are the commonalities that they're doing that make a video like really interesting to watch, where it's like they hook your attention and you want to see the rest of it? And what strategies are they doing to re-engage you throughout the video? Like, are there things that they do with editing? Are there things like in the storytelling? Is there like a payoff that like, some sort of a natural story arc that you want to see what happens? Just like any movie that you've ever watched or TV show, there's always kind of that cadence of like things that happen, and, there's usually a payoff towards the end. And so those same elements are really important on YouTube. And the more of that you can implement, and as well as just getting better at your editing, your audio quality, video quality, all that kind of stuff, it all adds together. Like that will make ultimately a really good video if you can kind of compound all those different skill sets together. And then YouTube is fantastic at finding people who will be interested in that content.
So let me ask you a very tough question, and you'll understand this because you have your own entrepreneurial background. in entrepreneurship, they're very big on MVP, minimum viable product, and almost be laughably embarrassing in your first iterations of products or businesses. There's also a school of thought, don't put out something until you're proud of it, which can be the bane of a lot of startups, right?
Yes. Yeah.
I guess on the YouTube side, I'm curious if you have, I don't want to say a hot take. It's not a hot take. It's just like an opinion on it. Should you really wait until you craft the right video, or should you just be pumping these out and get the reps in? Do you have an opinion on that?
I do. I think that the answer to that depends on the stage of YouTube that you're in. If you're a brand new creator and you haven't uploaded much at all, it's hard for you to make a great video. And even if you think you're making a great video, there's probably a lot of things that are wrong with it that a more veteran person who's like had the reps put in would recognize that you don't recognize yet, because you haven't, played the game enough yet. And so I think if you're a newer creator, it's more important to get volume out there first, just for the sake of learning. Like if, a lot of people will say don't expect any traction until you put out 100 videos or whatever that number might be. I think you can get traction a lot faster if you're a student of it and you really spend a lot of time learning. But yeah, I think that if you were to spend, I guess the trap is spending time working on things that aren't important, but you don't know that they're not important yet because you haven't been, you haven't put enough reps in to start to learn like what actually is important and what does make a video good. I've seen a lot of people go down these rabbit holes where they'll spend 10, 100 hours on something that's like, it didn't move the needle on how good the video quality really was in terms of the overall production and interest to the audience. Whereas sometimes like if you as you get better at it, you'll start to realize like little things you can do will make, a 10 times improvement in retention just because you had a really strong intro. Or like one of the classic mistakes people will make is they'll have these like exit words where they'll tell the audience that the video's over when it's not actually over yet. They'll say like finally or like last up or whatever, or they'll start going into like the classic like YouTuber outro, and then they're like, there's still 3 minutes of video left, and that you can watch the retention just tanks down, and it's like such an avoidable thing. But it's like until you've kind of studied it and realized that like okay, well, looking at the retention, like why did it drop off? Oh well, I kind of like signaled to people that the video was over, but it's not actually over. There's still content to be watched. So that's kind of stuff that I feel like you need to get the volume of like just iterations first, and then over time you get better and better at knowing like what to look for.
I'm laughing. If you're watching this on video, I'm laughing because I literally sent my editor of the last episode I filmed, hey, can you edit out? I said this is the last point, and there was like 3 more points made after I said the last point. Can you edit out me saying last point?
I guarantee if you were to upload the normal way, you'd see in that graph, you'd see a big drop off because people are just, we all watch a lot of content online, and I think we're tuned to like listen for cues like that. Oh, this is over. And it's pretty funny. You'll see if I was to especially go back for my early videos, you'll see like I used to have that end card go for like 30 seconds or whatever. It's like the video is over. I'm just killing my retention, which is going to make it get less views. And so,
yeah, one way that happened for me is my editor, he's just following directions, and we were feeling each other out when getting the start. But he originally had my outro music go for like a minute to a minute and a half, and I was like, it just feels really long. And he's a great editor. I think he thought I wanted this track I found to be completely used, and I didn't specify. Like, no, you don't have to. Yeah. So now it's like cut down to the last like 30 seconds, and even that might be a bit long. But yeah, I was like, dude, I hate when I'm on the, and you can. So I listen to the radio and ESPN or any of the like news ones. Sometimes I can feel the interviewer trying to end the interview, and I know the hour's almost up, and I'm like, that guest is talking, and like you almost get anxious, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like when you're interviewing in media, you almost have like a responsibility to be like, yo, like, don't elongate, just get to it and end it. You know what I mean? Oh,
well, and on the reverse of that, the intro, like one of the cardinal sins of YouTube is that people make these long-winded intros and they explain the whole video before they even get into it. And it's just a retention killer. It's so much more important to just get it. It's funny because like, as I look at the videos that I create now, like my intros have gotten like as short as possible and my outros are as short as possible. Like it's like, the video's in, like start and then just get right into it, because I think the meta of it has changed over time too. Like it used to be for years, it was like kind of acceptable to have like this long-winded intro, and then you'd have like a little montage of like your, you know, like behind the scenes footage or whatever. People did all these different things, kind of like a, you know, and if you watch a Netflix show, there's like the whole like, you know, they'll have the first part of the thing, and then there's like the long like canned intro that every episode has, and people skip that on Netflix, of course. But it's like on YouTube, like people did the same thing, and it's like, well, you don't need to do that. Like it doesn't provide any value really to the video.
You know what's interesting is I'm not a movie guy really. I don't go out of my way to watch movies, but I'm basic, and anything Christopher Nolan makes, I will go watch. Like I just love his movies, and Oppenheimer came out this year, 2023.
Yeah.
And I was hyped, man. I was like, I get this. I had never seen a movie in IMAX before. So I was like,
oh, yeah.
Oppenheimer will be the best movie to watch in IMAX for the first time. And I thought it was good, but it wasn't one of my favorite Nolan movies. And I was like, what? But what was so different about this one compared to the other ones? And I told my girlfriend, I was like, I think it's because most Nolan movies have like no exposition of like, let me get to know the protagonist. You just dive right in. And Oppenheimer was the opposite, where there was a lot of buildup where, like, you know, I liked Tenet, Dunkirk, and these other ones. Dude, you don't even know who the protagonist even is. You're just like, oh, let's get this movie started. Yeah. And so to your point, it's just cool to see that. I think like there's trends in movies to do that, and YouTube also has that as well.
Yeah, and I think there's the nature of online video. It's such a like a short attention span type of thing, you know, like, and there's exceptions. Like some creators are good enough at hooking you in that you'll watch something that's really long. But the general trend is going shorter and shorter all the time. It's like it used to be like, you know, just like a long YouTube videos, and it was like shorter YouTube videos, and then now we have shorts and TikToks and reels, and it's like, who knows, the next thing is going to be like 2 seconds long. Well, it seems like a lot of attention span. But then at the same time, there's like the Joe Rogan 3-hour podcasts do well too. So I think there's room for every length of content, but it's just, I think what there's not room for is like long things that don't provide value during it. Like it needs to be engaging in some way.
Yeah, there's a Simpsons quote I love that says, "You spend a lot of words to say absolutely nothing." And I'm like, yep, there you go. That's what you want to avoid. But talking about the videos, it's like the best way to understand it is common etiquette today is when you tell them, hey, you watch this video and you're next to them, it shouldn't be more than like 15 seconds long. Like people are like, oh, I've had people like, hey, watch this video with me. I'm like, dude, that's like 5 minutes long. I'm going to sit for 5 minutes. Like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Okay, so before with YouTube, I have a soft spot for YouTube because I was social media era, and I always thought YouTube was the most underrated of the mediums, even though it's financially like crushing it, right? But so let's think about this from a perspective of a business, though, who might have a 1-hour webinar, maybe 3 or 4 of them, the one conference that they hosted a talk and a panel, and they have that there. Obviously, it's not ideal YouTube content, but it is content. Where I kind of want to lead this is you had mentioned a 2-pronged, maybe even 3-pronged strategy of long form and short clips. Can we talk a little bit about that for like marketing teams and what you recommend there?
Yeah, so I think what we were talking about specifically was you wanting to start this podcast, and like, should you have long form full episodes on the same channel with like short clips and like maybe actual shorts, like the vertical format? And my stance on this is always that you want consistency of the type of content on the channel. So if you have 1 hour long podcasts, that's fine. You probably should have all of your videos be like similar. And this is not like a hard and fast rule. You can deviate a little bit, but it's like, generally speaking, when you get a new viewer or subscriber, you want them to have a somewhat consistent experience throughout the content on that channel. So if someone gets used to watching like your 5-minute little clips from your podcast and they've consumed, let's say, 10 of those, it's less likely that all of a sudden they're going to want to watch a 1 hour full length thing. Now, some people will. And that's why I think that what makes a lot of sense is to have multiple channels where it's like you have maybe short clips from your podcast where you can be more creative with the titling and thumbnailing and get people's attention. And then within that, you have a link to the full length thing. So if they want to see the whole thing, they can go watch that. I think that makes a lot of sense. I feel like, though, if you're just all on the same channel, like having people like get, what they're used to like a short thing and then they're served like a long thing, not a whole lot of people are going to want to like invest that full hour necessarily. It's kind of, you're kind of attracting a different audience. And I've just literally before this had a conversation with some YouTube friends, and we had the same conversation about shorts. It's a complicated thing right now because a lot of YouTubers feel like shorts are hurting their channel still. And one of the, I mean, who knows if it is or is not, it's hard to say. But one of the theories I still have is like, well, if your channel's growing a whole lot because you're getting people who like your shorts, but that's not the same type of person who's going to watch your long form content, it's something to consider. You know, it's like there should be some like synergy between the two format types ideally.
So you're not saying this, but arguably you could have the long form, the short forms, and then even the YouTube Shorts version, so that there are 3 different areas essentially.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think maybe it would make more sense to potentially have like the shorter clips and the shorts on the same channel, because those are getting pretty similar. But yeah, I mean, you could potentially split those into 3 different channels too.
And I like what you said about like users wanting the same, you know, time period or, you know, time limit for the videos. Cause, you know, I follow a lot of comedians on YouTube who like make 10-second, maybe 30-second skits. If the skit's really funny, maybe a minute. But like I'm like ProZD, he makes like what 10-second skits, right? He like he does like the Vine stuff, like Vine time. But like I'm not talking about ProZD, but there's like other comedians who are like they'll put like an hour vlog, and I'm like, dude, I watch your 10-second videos. Why do I want an hour long vlog?
And so
like, that's not gonna work. Yeah,
that's the whole thing about like the viewer behavior, right? If someone's used to watching like short little clips from someone, it's like a small percentage of people are going to want to watch the hour long behind the scenes vlog. Like the super fans, maybe, and that's where that's where maybe you like link to that kind of stuff and give people the opportunity to know it exists. But like, you know, if you're trying to optimize for viewer behavior, what you really want is that every time someone sees one of your videos, they click it, especially if it pulls up on the browse sections, which are basically effectively your homepage, like in especially that top left position or like the top position on mobile. Like that's like the cream of the crop, best spot for your video to show up, because that's like the most engaged viewer for your channel. So every time your video shows up there and they don't click because, oh, I don't want to watch an hour long behind the scenes vlog, if I just want this guy's like short little clips that are funny, like that's basically training YouTube that, oh, this person's not that interested in this content anymore, which might not be true. They might be interested. They're just it's serving them the wrong content from that channel. So you can kind of do yourself a favor by having consistency of, you know, similar content on the channel, so that they don't have to make that decision of, you know, not watching something.
So for the videos or the marketing teams that are listening that have like maybe that like hour long panel video, which we all know it's probably not gonna be the greatest because the camera is far away, but hey, you got to work with what you have right now, right? So arguably what they could do is keep that channel, that's great, but then maybe create a second channel and split that panel video into, I don't know how many shorts you can get out of it, like, or not shorts, but like short 5-minute clips, right?
And I would go by topics. So like, you know, I would assume that on an hour long panel like that, they're probably not talking about the same thing for the full hour. There's probably like, let's say 10 different micro conversations within that. So, you know, break that into clips. And then what that gives you the opportunity to do is then you can get creative about thumbnailing and titling. It's like, you know, that's where it takes your marketing brain to kind of like, you know, study what's working on YouTube and kind of try some different formats and stuff. But that gives you a lot of opportunity to test different things while you still have like on your other channel, you still have the full thing and you can link back, hey, you want to watch the full like panel, here's a link to it. So that kind of, you know, that way you get a benefit. There's this kind of advanced thing on YouTube called like the clustering effect. I have a friend named Daryl Eves. He's like a YouTube genius, and he's the first one I've seen really talk about this in like a kind of organized way. But you'll notice as you get deeper into YouTube, you'll see my favorite example of this right now is in golf content. I really love playing golf, and so I watch a lot of golf YouTube, and there's a lot of these golf channels where it's like they'll have this clustering effect where one person will like do like a match with another creator, and then like that person will have a match with a different creator, and then like all of a sudden you're getting recommended all of these other creators that you might not have seen before, who are all in that golf kind of sphere because they all sort of collaborate together. And that's a really powerful effect, because then just by nature of sort of being in that circle, you'll start to kind of get recommendations from similar content like that. And you can orchestrate it if you're smart about, you know, making content that's like similar to each other and have different channels that all have kind of that crossover effect.
Got it. So it's almost from a strategic like, so from, let's say I control the channel, and let's just use the golf one, but I don't play golf. So if I butcher this, I apologize to everybody. I don't play golf.
It's okay.
You're saying though, if like you own a golf channel and you know that there are other creators that maybe are on your level, even better if they're doing better than you, but you can go to them and confidently say, hey, we should do maybe I be in your video, you be in my video. And it will help both of us because now we have access to each other's pools, and we know YouTube will start understanding we're all in the same cluster. And if we do it enough, we're almost going to be a unit that's being recommended. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yep. So one of the big things that YouTube's always looking for is to find similar content to things you just enjoyed, right? So if someone watches this entire hour-long talk that we're doing and they really enjoyed it, well, they might also be interested in like some of the other, like My First Million or these other podcasts that are, maybe a somewhat similar format. And so that's really good for you because then people, if it starts making that association, oh, this content's like people who like this also like this. Kind of, well, Amazon's done that for years, right? The people who bought this also bought this. It's the same principle on YouTube where it's like, if people who are watching some of these other shows, if like, oh, Jason's show is kind of similar to this, I wonder if this person would enjoy this show as well. Like you'll start to see that behavior on YouTube. And, if you're smart about it, you can facilitate that by doing collaborations and projects with people who have similar content. Or as a business, you can even have multiple channels where you collaborate with your own channels in that way. So it's like, you have short clips that then push people to like a long form version of the same thing. So then, not only are they getting served like short clips from your podcast, they're also getting served the full length ones. And so they kind of choose here and there what they want to watch.
What's funny is that as a viewer, whenever there's a guest on the YouTube video, I'm always like, who the hell is this?
Yeah.
And then there's like a 50% chance I start following them after.
Sure.
Like,
yeah, absolutely.
As a marketer and as a, when you're a consumer and a viewer, you're not supposed to be that rational. Like I that's one of those things. I'm like, you can kind of do whatever the heck you want as a viewer. So you have to be picky. Like, no, I have brand loyalty to just this guy. But if someone guest appears, I just know there's a 50% chance I'm going to be consuming their content. And it always annoys me, but it happens all the time. What's really interesting about that clustering effect? I'm not going to do it justice. So topical. I'll send you the short version of. I had a guest named Jason Bernard, and he is a kind of like the leading guy right now in branded SERPs. So he's trying to push SEO, but specifically for owning your name. And so if you Google my name right now, we're like midway through owning my name, essentially.
Gotcha.
And he was talking about clustering in the branded SERP side. And it sounds very similar to what you're talking about. So it'd be cool. I'll send that to you because the concept sounds similar. Actually, YouTube sounds more actionable, but hey, maybe there's going to be some insights from that kind of cross over.
Yeah, absolutely. Well. I mean, it makes a lot of sense. It's kind of, if you think back to old school SEO principles, it's the same idea, right? Where you have like links from your site that are like, some prominent site links to your site, then it's like has that page. I forget what all the fancy SEO words are these days. I don't live in that world anymore. But
me talking about golf, you talking about SEO. It's all very good.
I used to know a thing or two, but it's been a while. But anyway, the idea being like, if something is perceived as being, high value website, and then it links to your website, well, your website gets a boost in Google's eyes because it's like, oh, well, this is more relevant because this high authority site is linking to it.
Yeah, and he was going like even deeper, where it's like if you can associate with a cluster of entities, like Google already knows and understands as these guys are thought leaders in this market, and you start to enter into that cluster through what you were talking about, then they will expedite you and your understanding of you because you're clustered with a entity group they already are aware of, right?
Exactly.
So.
Yep.
I'm butchering it though, but thank you for the shameless plug of it to the other episode. The listeners don't have to go listen to now.
See,
right?
There you go. You're getting a little clustering effect now. You get people to watch that. Wait, speaking of this is actually a good tangent. So one of the most powerful things you can do on YouTube is to get repeat viewers. There's this really great statistic that you can look up in the advanced mode of YouTube if you get your channel going. That's called average views per viewer, AVPV, and it's in the advanced mode. You have to like go advanced, and there's like some settings you can look through. Anyway, basically what it's showing you is like on average, how many videos does each viewer watch? That's like a rough way to explain it. And so you can go through, and channels that have a high AVPV tend to do really well because YouTube loves repeat viewers. And channels that have a low AVPV struggle more because it's hard. They don't get that repeat viewer going. And so they tend to not get as many like dedicated viewers of a channel.
Yeah, no, that makes complete sense. I think SEO has always had an aspect of that, but it was never like a strong. You could have click through rate, but it was never that strong of a signal. But it sounds on YouTube, it just makes so much more sense why it's a stronger signal. I think of everybody's YouTube consumption as like the opposite of the bell curve, where most videos you watch, actually, it's not the opposite. That most videos you're watching once and never even remember it again. And there's some videos where we're all a little psycho and we've watched it a little too many times.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Well, what's kind of interesting, you can notice this if you study your own behavior on YouTube. If you watch a channel, let's say you find some video that you really like, and then you go to the channel and you watch another video and another video, you can almost guarantee that you're, assuming you're logged in and as an account, if you go back to your homepage like the next day, almost certainly that top left position on your homepage on a desktop is going to be a video from that creator. Like you can force it to do that basically by watching a lot of content, and then it's going to start recommending it because that's like your most recent thing that you've been expressing interest in.
It's funny because as a marketer, though, sometimes I'm a little annoyed at its jumpiness, because sometimes I'll watch a couple. I don't know what the reason might be. It's because someone sent it to me and they're like, yo, I hate this, but you should check this out. I'm looking at a couple of them and they're like, you must really like this. I'm like, bro, calm down. Like, like internet joke. Oh, I need it for research. No, truly, I was only watching a couple of these for research, man.
Yeah. Well, the funny thing though is it's pretty adaptive too, because like let's say that you're in that situation and something pops up and you just don't click it, or there's even ways to show that I'm not interested in this, but like, let's say you just don't click it. Over time, it will start like de-indexing how important it thinks that video is for you as a viewer. So it works both ways. Like if you watch a lot of something, it will start rising up and you'll see it more often on your homepage, on your suggested on the right-hand side of a video or below a video as you're watching it. But if you stop watching that kind of content, it will stop recommending it to you.
My uneducated way I thought to combat that is like I will find those videos on my watch history and remove them from my watch history so that it's not my behavior and everything as well, right? Sometimes, like especially the YouTube shorts, I did not mean to watch that thing. It was just the next one, and now suddenly you think I'm into this thing, right?
Well, that's the tricky part of shorts is that you typically don't pick which thing you're watching. You scroll to it, and it's already too late because you're already watching it. So. Yeah. Okay,
so let's jump to the next thing. I know, like everyone asks this. I think you've kind of already answered it, but I think we just have to ask the question: is there a sweet spot for length of YouTube videos? I'll just tee it off. I know there's a whole other thing, but
yeah, I mean, there's obviously different schools of thought. I don't really think that a sweet spot necessarily exists, except for the rule that the content should be as long as it needs to be to serve the needs of what it is. So if it's a Joe Rogan 3-hour podcast and you're engaged the whole time, like that's great. If it's just a short little viral video that's a 1 minute long, and that can do great too. I've seen examples of both of these get, millions and millions and millions of views. So I think the bigger thing is you shouldn't try to stretch something out because you want it to be long. If it doesn't need to be long, you're probably hurting yourself. At the same time, if something has a lot of value in being long, don't artificially chop it down. In fact, if you're trying to make money from YouTube, one of the best things is to have long videos because that allows you to have a lot of mid-rolls in between. So if you have long videos with really good engagement, those are the ones that make a lot more money because the mid-rolls in between are going to get shown more often. So, if your goal is to monetize the channel and make money that way, you will make more, most likely, from having longer videos that have a lot of mid-roll potential.
So I'm going to pull a concept from earlier. We're talking about, did you say clustering or YouTube clustering? What was the term?
Yeah, cluster. Yeah. Like
the cluster. So I guess there could be an argument though of like, if you're trying to get your YouTube channel going, you should go find an existing, set of channels that talk about what you're kind of want to talk about and possibly mirror theirs. There's an argument for, be different. But if you're not like excusing virality and 100% focus on YouTube, it might just be safer to go with what's already kind of performing well and then basing your length on that. Is there an argument for that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that definitely studying things that are working well is a surefire way to find some level of success. I think the tricky part is you don't want to just straight copy what's working. You want to figure out like how you can do stuff better in your own way, because I think that's where a lot of people get stuck. Is they see something working well, they just try to rip it off, and then it's like, well, you're not really adding value to the platform by just repeating what's already out there. But you could be inspired by, if you see some creator that you like does something in a particular way, if maybe you make your own version of that and it has some new value proposition that original person maybe isn't providing in some way, then that can be really good. That's actually kind of how I got my start on YouTube. Is there's this concept of a video called a tier list where you rank stuff in basically a list that goes from like the best stuff at the top to the worst stuff at the bottom. And in the particular game that I cover, which is Destiny 2, there's a lot of people did tier lists, but I didn't really feel like any of them were like really highly produced. Like, a lot of them were just people like dragging items into a list, and there wasn't really like much video production behind it. And so I was like, well, I feel like I have valid opinions about how to rank stuff, but I could also do a much better job of, having video of the thing being used when I'm talking about it, and then having like cool animations where I'll pop into the list instead of just being like, a desktop view of someone like on their website or whatever. So that's one of the formats that started to really take off for me. And that was some of my most viewed videos are that format where it's like, I just took an existing thing and made it better. And then a lot of people enjoyed it.
So I agree 100%. I'm someone who values originality. Like if I see something after 3 times, I'm like, all right, no more. It's like, to your point, I've seen 10,000 iterations of YouTubers just try Marcus Brownlee's style, and I'm like, I know it's going to be 10x worse, and why would I even watch it at that point, right?
Yeah, and then at that point, you're also missing like that personality factor that like he's got that parasocial relationship with the audience because he's been doing it for so long that people feel like they know him and they like him, and so. If you don't even have that and you're trying to rip off exactly what he does, it's like there's really not adding a lot of value to things by doing that.
So the specific question about timing, though, you would say even timing, you don't have to follow. Just base it off something, iterate on it, but even timing of the video in your cluster, you don't have to follow it. Just
No. As far as length, I mean, I don't think that that's a huge factor. I mean, if you're truly trying to like fit into that cluster effect, then sure, maybe like having similar length content could be helpful because theoretically that viewer that you're trying to like connect with might like that length of video. I wouldn't worry too much about that. I think that the cluster stuff is more something that happens somewhat organically by making content that's similar to other creators because you're into the same, topics. But I don't feel like that's something that you should worry too much about. I feel like that's more of a natural thing. And as you get more advanced in YouTube, you'll see opportunities for that to pop up. But, especially if you're a newer creator and you haven't put a lot out on YouTube, that's not something I would worry much about. I would focus on just making the video the length that it needs to be to make the best video that you can.
Okay, perfect. We've asked the question. We can move on from that. I feel like everyone knows the answer too, but everyone feels the need to ask the question. So we've asked.
There's a lot of subtleties to it. So I mean, it's like it's hard to give a blanket answer, but I think that the guiding principle. I mean, you listen to Mr. Beast, who's like arguably, well, I guess not even argue. He's the biggest YouTuber these days, right? So that's pretty much the answer he'll always give you: is make the video as long as it needs to be the best video it could be. That's
which, like, when you're starting out, you hate, but then as you get more advanced, you understand. You know what I mean? Yeah.
It's so funny. Have you ever seen there's this like meme format where it's like someone like starts off like really simplistic ideas on some topic, and then like it gets like super complicated, like every optimization thing ever, and then like the expert version's like back to like the super simple version. I feel like that is YouTube in a nutshell. It's like at first you just make a video, and then you get like all into the crazy stats and nerd things, and it's like there's a million things to analyze, and then the deeper you get is like actually the only thing that really matters is just making a video that's desirable for the audience that you're trying to appeal to.
Yeah, I have the existential crisis all the time with SEO because like people are like, what about this? What about that? And the number of times I say it doesn't really matter scares me because then I'm like, wait, am I devaluing why like you even need me? But to your point, no, there are points though that are massively important, and you just start being able to see it without thinking about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
The other one I want to jump to is, so I'm an SEO. I think of things very one-dimensionally through search. But on YouTube, there's YouTube search, but there's also related videos. I'm sure there's other things I may be unaware of. What are the areas that you feel should be prioritized for, the side of YouTube? Yeah.
This is such a good question. I'm glad you brought it up. It's funny because like, hey, YouTube's like, I think considered the second biggest search engine right behind Google. And of course it's like owned by Google. So it's like,
I thought it was reversed. I think YouTube's number one.
Maybe YouTube's number one. It's highly relevant in the search world to say the least.
YouTube is one and Google is two. The reason why I know that is because it's always a like gotcha question whenever I go to conferences.
Yeah, that's interesting. Maybe it's reversed. Like when I started giving the spiel years ago, I think it was the opposite way around, but YouTube's been growing so much. Maybe it is number one now. So there's obviously a ton of search potential on YouTube. So if you have a video that does well in search, and I have several of my videos have done fantastic in search and they've delivered millions of views and it's been awesome. However, the data may be slightly off on this. When I started learning this fact years ago, only like 20-ish%, 30-ish% of views come from search on YouTube. So there's actually a massive amount of views that are happening from the recommendation system, which is effectively the homepage when you log in on whatever device, and then the recommended videos that are on the sides and underneath the video, depending on what device you're on. So like that is the bulk of actual views on YouTube, which is interesting because, you know, the first thing people think about is, oh, well, like optimize for search and whatever. And so there's a lot of opportunity to get views that are not even search based at all. Now, search, I think, is still incredibly important. And you can make a really successful channel by getting search views. The problem that most people have is, especially once you come from SEO, like your world is particularly vulnerable to this problem, is that, you know, I used to do a lot of SEO too. And like the whole idea is like, okay, keywords, like what keywords can I jam in here to like get the right viewers, right? Well, in YouTube, that really doesn't work that well because the YouTube's algorithm is really, really smart about figuring out context of videos, and the click-through rate and the engagement, like how long someone actually watches a video, are very, very important in the algorithm. And so the better thing to do actually is just to make a really, really good video about whatever topic it is and make the thumbnail, title, and the topic of the video as interesting to people as possible, and don't really worry so much about the keywords, because with YouTube's analyzing every word that's said in the video. They have like all the meta description of like the title and the tags used and like the description and all that stuff. And so they're really good at figuring out context of what a video is about. So you'll see, if you study YouTube closely enough, you'll see tons of examples where I search something like, beginner's guide for something, and the top videos that get served are actually not using those keywords specifically, but it's relevant to that search query. So they're still popping up. And I actually myself, I think my top viewed video on my current channel, it ranks for a lot of keywords that aren't even in the title at all. But it just, the YouTube's smart and it figures out what the video is about. And so when people search like, related things, like that's what pops up. So it's better to, just focus on making a really good video and make the title thumbnail really attractive for a human to click on, and not worry too much about like all jamming it with keywords everywhere.
It's almost like let Jesus take the wheel, essentially.
Yeah, exactly. It's a YouTube version of that.
So that makes sense to me. Now, as any marketing team or business person, that you have KPIs and things that you have to move the needle with. Obviously, creating the video and hoping it goes well is the first step. But can you speak to anything about trying to influence the movement more? Like, what comes to my mind is possibly, if you have connections, ask your YouTube channel peers or friends to reference you in their videos or do a collab video. But do you have any thoughts on that side of things?
So that kind of thing can work well. The key, like we talked about earlier, is that you don't want to just have it be random people who have influence in some sphere. Like you don't want to be posting it on your Facebook and having all your friends click the video. It's like, it should be targeted. If you're in a position where you have friends or colleagues or, acquaintances who have a similar audience who's very close to like the ideal audience that you're trying to go after, then any collaborations, call outs, people will even do things like they'll pay for placements in like the end cards and like the little info cards. Like there's like deals that go on like that where people will pay to get like that traffic driven back, because there is value there. But again, the number one focus needs to be on the audience that you're doing that with. If it's not the right viewer, you can really mess your channel up if you're, getting an influx of the wrong viewers who aren't going to watch the rest of your videos. That can be a big problem.
Does it work externally? Like, let's say like Google, you can't do this that well, but like LinkedIn, there's personas, and you could run a paid LinkedIn campaign to a certain persona to drive it to your YouTube video. Does it work externally into YouTube?
YouTube is very, very careful about external. From my understanding, the algorithm, generally speaking, doesn't take into account external traffic very heavily in how it looks at things, because it's so easy to be gamed. You can pay for a click farm in any country to send a bunch of traffic, and And so that doesn't tend to work well. And the other thing to be wary about is, generally speaking, best practice from it's not something I have a lot of experience with because I've been told not to do this by people I trust who have a lot more YouTube experience than I have, is don't try running paid ads on your own videos just for the sake of getting viewership. Now, it's something a little different if you have like a product you're trying to sell and you want to run ads to sell the product. That's kind of a different deal. Still, though, I would consider doing that on a separate channel to keep it separate from your main stuff, because you don't necessarily want to mess up your own viewership and algorithm. But definitely don't run ads just for the sake of getting views, because YouTube's really smart about knowing where that traffic's coming from. And so you're not going to run ads and then just magically get the video to blow up in that way. I mean, at least from what I have learned from people who I trust who have experience in that world. It's not something that I've experimented with a whole lot, because I've heard from enough people I trust that's not worth doing. So
yeah, I feel that way. I feel that way in SEO. I'm a late stage SEO because I came a little bit later, but there have been enough high profile mistakes that you just don't need to make them again, right?
Yeah.
So it sounds like, though, YouTube is really its own world, and you can't be influenced from the outside, and you just have to trust that you will get a shot. They will recommend your video. You just better be able to be clicked and watched. After that, though, it starts to, like, if you don't do well, you don't do well, essentially.
Yeah, absolutely. I was talking to a friend about this the other day, and it's funny because I think as business people, sometimes we want to just like pour money on the problem and try to fix it with, you know, the resources that you have from other areas. And it's hard to just spend money on YouTube to make it better. The most powerful way to do it well is to invest it directly into making the videos better, whether that's for paying for higher quality editors, or, you know, even like YouTube consultants and coaches and people who can like help you understand the strategy more, paying for, I mean, production quality in terms of like the video, like quality and stuff that I think has diminishing returns to some level. Like, just because you have like some $50,000 red camera or something doesn't make it like, you know, that much better than like just a nice looking camera. And probably the audio is actually the more important thing. Is, you know, as long, people can get away with like video that looks like okay as long as it sounds good, but if it's bad audio, even if it's the most beautiful video, it's hard to watch. So invest in your audio first.
I have a really close friend and one of our clients who runs a video production agency, and he has talked about there is a movement for videos to feel less produced. Like people are wanting more, like it's almost like they want to feel like that the video is filmed through an iPhone or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of big creators. In fact, I think Mr. Beast famously for a while, I don't know if he's still doing this, but for a while he was only filming in like 1080p because he wanted to have the videos feel more like authentic and not be super high res. But
yeah, so that's something that I can vibe with then. So the main theme is you just need to understand, respect the YouTube environment and stop trying to game it from outside resources. Just get in there, get to know what channels are already talking in your market, and innovate and iterate on top of those things. All right, so the other topic I wanted to kind of cover is YouTube Shorts. That's the big one right now, is that YouTube Shorts is big. I was wary of talking about YouTube Shorts because I was like, oh, is this going to be one of those features that YouTube cuts very soon? My guess is it looks like it's here to stay, but can you talk about YouTube Shorts strategies and how people need to think about that side of things?
Yeah, so I'll admit shorts are not something I have put as much time into as the long form. And partially for me as a creator, it's because I don't really see a whole lot of value yet from putting a lot of time into shorts versus long form. Whereas like, you know, since my primary monetization on it is from the getting views on the videos, which is a combination of YouTube ads plus like brand deals and integrations and all that stuff. I think YouTube Shorts are technically monetized. You can make money, but it's like pennies. I mean, it's you have to get millions of views for it to be meaningful. So it's, you know, in terms of the straight monetization, I feel like for my current channels, I don't think that it really is as close. The proposition that perhaps is interesting is growing your overall channel viewership, because shorts are, you know, being pushed so heavily that like you can maybe reach new audiences. The problem I still have with that theory is that I've seen a lot of examples still of people getting big viewership from shorts. That same audience doesn't necessarily watch their longer form content. So in my case, like that's not what I want. Like that wouldn't, if I blew up from 100-something thousand subscribers to 1 million subscribers overnight because I had a bunch of shorts go viral, well, does that really help me if they don't watch my long form content? Maybe not. Like that's, you know, I don't know how valuable that would really be to my overall business. And so I think shorts are tricky right now because if you're purely going for like exposure, I think it's a great way to get a lot of eyeballs because you have, the growth potential of certain shorts is insane. But if you're doing it to try to have a more traditional YouTube business where you want to like, have monetization on the thing, it's the doing it purely from shorts. Like there's people who get like billions of views on shorts and they don't make much money from it.
That's really interesting. Sorry to jump in, but like I'm thinking about my own viewership and there's definitely people I watch only their YouTube shorts, but I don't watch any of their videos because I'm like,
absolutely.
Your short's like 30 seconds and I love these things, but that video is 13 minutes long. I'm not going to watch that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And if you're in a situation where maybe you're in a business and you have a product to sell, and that's fine because it's like in your shorts, you plug your product and the eyeballs are worth it. Maybe that's a really viable strategy. I just think you have to be kind of smart about what's your goal on the platform. Are you trying to make like long form videos that people really love and that's like, they're kind of their new TV show that they want to watch? Are you trying to just purely get exposure for a particular product? Maybe it's a hybrid of things. It's like you have to kind of think about your goals. And I think shorts are so new and experimental that we're like, even the biggest channels are not 100% sure on the impact that they're having. I've seen interviews with a lot of people with like, huge channels that are still kind of on the fence about how valuable shorts are to their business. And so all I would say, I don't want to say like naysay about shorts. I think that they have their place and I think they can be incredibly valuable, but you have to think about like, what's your goal and does that help you achieve your particular goal?
That's a good point because how I think about it is like from a marketing department or marketing team's perspective, you could arguably be like, oh, we'll just use the shorts to get more eyeballs on our brand.
Yeah.
But then if they go to your channel, but they don't ever go beyond your channel, watch a video or go to your website, then there still is that like broken bridge though. There's not passing through.
Yeah.
We're not answering it here. Yeah.
So there's this phenomenon on TikTok where like there's these giant TikTok channels that have so many millions of followers and yet and certain TikToks that get all these views, like crazy views. But then a lot of people like they'll remember the TikTok, but they won't have a connection with that particular creator. Like, so it's this weird thing where it's like they kind of remember seeing the video, but they don't know that channel very well. Whereas YouTube historically, at least, like if you watch a lot of like YouTube long form videos, like people that know, like, and trust factors of like that particular YouTube channel become really high. Like that's probably the strongest part of YouTube is that like that connection from audience to creator there's a lot of trust that gets built in that, which is why the whole foundation of like brand deals and that kind of stuff really is like there's, people who watch the videos tend to trust the creators who create them a lot. And so I feel like in shorts, it's such a shorter relationship with that like time that you're spending watching that person. I don't think it builds that same level of trust with the creator. So again, it depends on like what your goals are. If you're just purely looking for like maximum exposure, I think that could make a lot of sense. But if your goal is to like build a long-term relationship with the viewer base, like I don't think that compared to like a long-form podcast like this, for example, I think that, even if you get less overall viewership, the people who do watch the podcast are going to really know, like, and trust you a lot more than someone who just saw a single little short clip. And that's kind of what they know about you.
Yeah. It's almost like Twitter and Facebook mashed together. Like, how is that going to work? Because they're both very different contexts. But like, this is like Vine and YouTube got mashed together, and you're like, well, or I guess TikTok and YouTube got mashed together. It's like, yes, but no. But to me, I guess walking away from this, it's stay tried and true to the YouTube kind of environment. That isn't to say shorts won't make it, but just because it's the new thing that they're pushing doesn't mean that you're going to win, and even it can be faulty in the long term now.
Absolutely. I think that's a good way to think about it. And I mean, to be clear, I think YouTube shorts are probably here to stay for a long time. Like I don't see them just like ripping it out of the platform anytime soon. But yeah, I think it is a very new experimental feature and you're not really sure necessarily the ramifications of that. So perhaps it makes sense to make a separate channel just for shorts. A lot of people do that where they just doesn't cost anything more to make additional channels. And because of the clustering effect, if you can get things to link together, you can often get crossover traffic from a lot of that too. So.
Oh my God, you just gave me an idea, but that would be a whole other conversation. I'll email you about it later, but cool, man. I think YouTube shorts, that's a really good way to put a bow on that. I'm trying to do that thing where I'm not saying that this is the last thing, but this is the last thing. So
I was going to catch you on the previous thing we talked about. I was like, is he trying to like not say the last thing? That's fine.
Well, that was the last kind of topic I wanted to go over with the time that we had. So what I wanted to say first is, because of the way this video will be cut, no one will be able to see it, but I wanted to give you a shameless plug. I see your YouTube platinum plaque back there.
Oh, is it? Yeah, over that way.
Over there, right? But the way we cut it is that it'll be vertical. So I just want everyone to know that, yeah, he definitely has the YouTube plaque in the background, but the way we're gonna cut the video, you won't be able to see it. But congratulations on that, man. How what does that mean? I always see that, but I don't know what that means if you have it.
So there's a couple different ones. There's one for 100,000 subscribers, which is like the silver one, and then if you get to 1 million, you get a gold one, and then there's levels above that, which are quite hard to get to.
Yours is silver, though.
I have a silver one, yeah, currently. I don't know if my main channel has potential to get to. In certain channels, you kind of see the limitations on like with the current audience you have built. Like I think I might need to make a pivot if I was to ever reach 1 million on that particular channel, but we'll see. There's the nice thing about YouTube is you can always make more channels. So.
And silver's sick. That thing looks awesome. Patrick, hey, man, thanks for the time. What I want to do now is you've done a lot of great stuff, but I wanted to let you tell the audience, where they can find you and interact with you, because I know you have your gaming YouTube channel, but where can they interact with you?
Yeah, so probably the things I'm most active on these days are like my gaming related social platforms. I have some business ones, but I don't really look at them too often these days. So probably the best way to actually get in touch with me is the gaming stuff. So Twitter, I think it's Pattycakes GG is the Twitter handle. And then, if you want to watch some of the YouTube videos that I've created, Pattycakes Gaming is my main channel. I also have one, Pattycakes GG is like my second channel, which I'm kind of growing that one slowly in the background. But that one has a good example of that one first video that had so many views like right out of the gate. So it's kind of a cool one to just look at. And that's probably the best way, is one of the two of those.
And to your advice earlier, if you're not a Destiny gamer, don't watch the videos because you're going to ruin the related video.
Well, yeah, luckily it's, as long as you have a fairly established viewer base, it doesn't mess it up too much. But yours, I've been on yours. Yours is very established, so it's not a concern there, right? Yeah, especially if you're that advice though, especially for a brand new channel that's just kind of getting its feet, like that is really important to abide by that advice. So.
All right, perfect. Well, Patrick, thanks again for the time, man. I think, I love YouTube, and so I love talking about this with you. I think there's a lot of stuff that we talked today that it's cool to get re-curious and re-energized based on our first conversation. So this was awesome, man. Thank you.
It was great talking to you. It was so much fun. I'm glad we were able to do it.
Awesome, dude. Thanks.